And so the first claim then is this. They suggest this. The New Testament Gospels are not historically reliable and are comparable to the various other heretical Gospels because they were not actually written by Jesus's companions.
Right. So kind of the orthodox belief of Christianity is one of the ways that we can accept something as part of the canon is that it was written by an apostle or someone that knew an apostle. So you can sneak Mark in that way because he was a follower of both Paul and then took the words of Peter. Yeah. At least historically within the church, this is the belief. Right. Ehrman is going to try and get around that a little bit and set at the foot of Peter. And then
Fred did it. Actually.
Yeah. It's a different Mark. Mark. And then the John of that time is not really the John that you're thinking of. It's a different John. So how's the argument go in this one? So are they real or are they counterfeit? That's the question here for claim one. Mm-hmm. So much of Ehrman's skepticism towards the New Testament Gospels is bound up in the distrust of the Gospel authors themselves. He argues that the tradition concerning their authorship arose in order to assure readers that they were written by eyewitnesses and associates of eyewitnesses. So kind of like, here's my version of the Gospel of, no one knows me, so who else can I do? Peter. There we go. Everyone knows Peter. Right.
So let's make something up and then put Peter's name on it and say, that's what we should be following, that because Peter wrote it.
And so that's why we have a Gospel of Peter. Oh, well, we don't have a Gospel of Peter.
Yeah, we really don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to that one. So he argues that the tradition concerning their authorship arose in order to assure readers that they were written by eyewitnesses, associates of eyewitnesses. He then goes on to argue that even if the Gospels were based on eyewitness testimony, he's doing us a favor and granting us that ability. Due to their bias, the reality is that eyewitnesses cannot be trusted to give historically accurate accounts. Wow. And, I tend to give Ehrman a lot of credit because he deserves a lot of credit. But this seems to be you can't have your cake and eat it too. Right, This is these weren't even written by the eyewitnesses. But if they were, you can't trust you can't trust them because they were too biased. Well, okay, which is the historical argument here? Right, or are you just gonna make if they were written by aliens who saw Jesus resorrected, then their bird's eye view perspective doesn't get them. They don't understand the historical context. I mean, how many variations of his argument is he going to do? Stick with the one that you subscribe to, the historical, whichever version account. Either these weren't written by eyewitnesses or associates, or they're too biased. Right. Which one are you going to pick?
Right. Yeah. And so he wants them both, right?
Right.
Yeah. So our authors point out that his arguments have several problems, right? First, he fails to explain why, if the church wanted to use early church figures to gain widespread acceptance for these documents, they chose Matthew, right, the tax collector, Mark, who, left Paul and Barnabas in the middle of the, in Acts, in the middle of
split the dream team. Yeah. He split the dream team.
Yeah, so he left them in this middle of while they were, evangelizing across the world. And then later, you're right, he caused them to get into this huge argument. So, of course, that's the guy we want, right, to add credibility. And then Luke, I mean, he wasn't even one of the...
he wasn't a Jew.
He wasn't even a Jew, and he wasn't one of the apostles, right? Man. So, these three rather obscure figures in the early Christianity, why in the world would they choose these folks if they're trying to, build up these documents as being authentic because they were written by, these folks who knew Jesus, walked with Jesus, were his apostles, and that sort of thing, right? In other words, if all the early church did was assign names to the gospel documents in order to invest them with greater authority, it seems that they would have chosen authors who occupied more significant roles among Jesus's inner circle.
Yeah. Right? Gospel of Thomas.
Yeah.
Just saying. If you're going to get the guy who doubted and had to change of heart. Or, why write Mark's name on it and not Peter's?
Yeah.
Unless there was already an assumption of who was doing what and how documents of the time back then were signed and written, and just the historical explanations are there. If you want to be skeptical, that's there, but you're having to prove your case, and Ehrman's going to try and do that, but our authors are going to counterclaim it.
Right.
So that was the first claim. They're not famous enough. That's the first claim.
Yeah, that's the first problem that we have, right? With this, they're not even. Some of them are not even famous at all, right? At least in terms of what we read in the New Testament, right?
Yeah.
And so
So
why use these folks?